this was the first scene that I made, if I'm not mistaken. I was very happy with the result, but this is also the scene that had more changes. I played around with focal length in the camera, but in the end I decided to remove it, because it was not applied as intended for all the other scenes that were like 96%, so it was a nonsense to use them in some places and not in others. I really enjoyed making this type of mini rooms diorama, especially in the slideshow. I got so excited that I even made 2 charms, Gathering Swarm and Stalwart Shell, which are on the shelf with several other items. There are so many different scenes that aren't connected in the same file because my computer graphics card could not handle more than 3 or 4 large scenes without crashing and closing the 3D software. In fact, there are in total 50 files where all the complete animated scenes are stored. The scene of the Last Stag was one of my favorites because I did an animation with this very same moment of the game years ago as a school 2D rig animation assignment. We were asked to animate a quadruped and I immediately thought of the Last Stag. Let me show you the result of that little assignment. Here on the False Night fight, I completely forgot that the knight still doesn't have the Mothwing cloak to do a dash. But I realized it almost finishing the battle, so I just cut that part from the trailer, although it is still visible here and in the full animated scenes video. This scene is like a giant collage of crystals. I like it even though there are only 3 different crystal assets. Only look at this hallway, it is my favorite of its type, because the landscape looks so vibrant with all those vines, and the background makes you feel small, and at the end is Hornet, the cherry on the top. here lays the bigger scene of all. Just look at where the roof is with those vines. They don't match accurately at all. The night looks like a tiny ant, but I really like how it turned out the building and the bridge. Of course, the giant Vengefly scene. I enjoyed a lot making shots fall and bounce when the knight triggered the Vengefly. I was very satisfied with the result. In this scene, I decided to do the title reveal because the green aspect and the bench were for me the best representation of the game. Because for me, the most iconic carry of the game is Green Path. I designed all the scenes by looking at different rooms in game, and in this project didn't plan how we would animate the characters in it, so the scenes are almost always bigger than the part I used in the end. The last part of this fight was originally planned for another Mantis Warrior fight, but when I finished their first fight, I decided to leave the arena in blank unless something came up. And at the end of the project, I noticed that Claude didn't have a peaceful talk with the knight, so I implemented them at the last minute there. The Mantis Lord's Arena. I really like this place. Something about the thrones and the sisters watching the first fight made this particular scene shine for me. Before even starting to make the first scene, I committed myself to create all the textures that were going to represent everything. So, I looked for several in-game locations and started drawing them, from Deermouth to the last place with the Radiance Arena. You can take a look, at the end there were hundreds of them. By the way, I have also hidden some little Easter eggs representing some video games that I would really like to make in the future. You can try to find them if you are curious. The fight against Soul Master is among my favorite in game, because when you think the fight is over, the master goes crazy with desperate fast attacks, and his team is so cool. I like it a lot. I was originally going to make the Spinnicus fight in this scene alongside Mantis Traitor, but at the end I completely forgot that Spiny even existed, so maybe for the next one. My favorite non-boss enemy without a doubt is Stalking the Vault. The way his long arms have holes in them that let you see his eyes is so sick. And he's pretty hard to defeat too. avoiding talking about the size, by the way. Here I was tired of drawing assets of hanging vessels, so I ended up just using the Stalking Devout Arms mask with a low poly slightly modified paint. In Kingdom's Edge, I modified the falling particle a little bit to make it look like ash, and make it roll as it happens in game. Also in Radiance Arena, I modified the particle, but this time to resemble a feather. Thank you for watching the landscape showcase from Hollow Knight the Make. If you have any suggestions to improve the presentation, please leave a comment down below. And I know my pronunciation is not the best, but thank you for putting up with me.